Coach's Corner 4, Demetrius, Jelatis here. Looking forward to helping you get your pool game to the next level. And tonight, I want to tell you guys, these are not all my ideas. So, some of the stuff I get from other people, from other, things that I've either read or people have taught me. And this one, I don't remember the name of the author. It was actually a golfer, and he had a book, and I'm not sure if it was the author of, I won't even speculate. So if somebody knows, maybe you can message me and I can get him credit next week. But he talked about, this is very important to me because he talked about something called the sponge versus the bull. And it's something I wanted to share because I had somebody email me in with a question. And the idea with the sponge versus the bull is that there is a balance that you need to have between being closed-minded and being wishy-washy. So the sponge, he says the sponge is the person that's too wishy-washy. They don't have that kind of, I'm going to make this decision. Here's where I'm going to go. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's what's going to happen. They don't have the conviction and vision, and kind of like, they're just not very confident. And maybe they're always questioning how they're doing what they're doing. Maybe they're perfectionists, and and so every time a new article comes out, or every time they see a new player run a bunch of racks, like, oh, I want to make my game look like his now. And so they don't love their own talent. They don't have their own path to follow, and they're always changing things up. And so the reason this whole topic came up with the sponge versus the bull is somebody emailed me. They were saying that they were really struggling with their fundamentals. And they proceeded to tell me how they would try something out and it would work at first, but then it wouldn't really work. And so then they'd make some changes, and then they'd change this, and it wouldn't really work for very long. And they've been struggling and struggling and changing and changing. And it sounded like they'd been on this merry-go-round or this kaleidoscope of fundamentals for, I don't know how long, 6 months, a year. It had just been they had not found a way to do it that worked for them. And they asked me for my advice, or if I had any advice. And I said, the problem is that, like in a science experiment, if you want to do a science experiment, you control for one variable. You have a bunch of fixed constants, and then you have one variable so that you can test and make some conclusions about that variable. And if you're changing everything on every trial, then you don't really get good feedback because you've got so many moving parts. You just don't really know what it is that's working or not working. Similarly, with a pool game, there's a fine line between having a pool game and then making a tweak or trying to work on one aspect of your pool game fundamentally versus not even having a baseline to where you don't even have a pool game that you're working on. You just have a never-ending shifting series of gobbledygook that it's just you don't even have a pool game that you're tinkering on anymore. You've just got a mess. And so the problem with that is that fundamentals are not something to where you're going to stumble on the perfect fit, and when you do, it's going to click and you're never going to miss. Fundamentals are a skill that must be practiced and developed. And so if you're looking for something to click and fit together, unfortunately, there's a lot of different ways to stand and hold a cue and sight and shoot and deliver your stroke. And they all take a lot of practice. And so by tearing it all down and starting over and tearing it all down and starting over and doing that again and again and again, maybe 3 of those combinations of fundamentals that you've stumbled upon would have worked had you stuck it out and actually put in some time and commitment to that setup. And so what I told him to do was find something that was comfortable, that, of the things he's done, what was the thing that seemed most comfortable? Why don't you just start there, commit to doing it for 3 to 6 months, and then just forbidding yourself from making any changes? Because I know he's a perfectionist, and I've been through this myself. But sometimes you just have to brute force it and say, there's no easy way that this is going to come together. I'm just going to have to pick a path, commit to it. And I told him, I said, it's almost like there's 50 roads that lead to this destination that's a long way away. And you keep taking 2 steps, then turning back because you're not there yet. Like, it's not so much about whether you're on the perfect path. Why don't you pick a path and stick with it for a while and try to make some progress? So that's the danger of being a sponge, is that you have to establish a baseline. You have to control variables. You have to gain some kind of commitment to what the path you're on is. And you can strategically reevaluate and make some tweaks here and there, but you have to at least have a baseline that you're going to be making adjustments from. So then on the other end of the spectrum is the bull. And the bull is the person that thinks they know it all. And these people are plentiful. It seems like pool, you get both ends. You get the perfectionists, and then you get the perfectionists that are paranoid that they might be doing something imperfect, so they think everything they do is wrong. And then you've got the perfectionists that think everything they do is perfect and that they know it all and that they're right. It's very, very tough. You don't get a lot of moderate, people with pool. It's a very extreme game. But the thing with the bull is these people think that they have it all figured out. And then usually, of course, then they have to be able to explain, well, why am I not Shane Van Boening or Joshua Filler? And they always come back to, well, maybe I just don't have the time to put into my game, or I don't have the talent, or once I do put in the time into my game, it'll come together and I'll be the best because I just haven't figured out. And some of these, like I've got people that I've known for many, many years that know that I play pretty good pool and know a lot about the game, that have never asked me a single question in 10 or 20 years of knowing me about pool, and if I've ever, heaven forbid that we have a conversation, I don't even volunteer anything, but if we ever have a conversation where I bring something up, they'll argue with me to the death on every pattern, on every shot. The people that plant their flag in the sand and argue to the death and think that they're right on everything because they've got this idea of how they think pool ought to work, and they're just going to pound their head against it and try to make that work. And some people, even if they're shown a better way, will keep doing it the way they're doing it because it's almost like they'd rather be right than get better. And so that's now it's really good. It's good to have confidence. It's good to have belief, and it's good to, come up with ideas that they believe in and stick with them. But man, there's a lot of, like, nobody knows it all. And we're all wrong about a lot of things. And I'm still learning things and being shown things. And I certainly know a lot of information that, players that are, anybody that's not touring around and making a good living at the game, I probably have some insight. So the bottom line is, the question you've got to ask yourself is, which is more important, being right or growing as a player? And if you really want to grow as a player, then you have to check your game once in a while and say, hey, I think I know what's going on, but who do I trust that's competent, and kind of force yourself to expose yourself to some new ideas, maybe being a little open-minded. So bottom line is, it can be bad to be on either end of that spectrum. If you're too spongy, if you're too bullish, those things can be tough. You want to be confident. You want to have a path. You want to have a vision. You want to have a baseline of what your game is. You want to have a plan for developing it. But then you still need contact with the outer world. You need feedback on what's working and what other people see. And if you have to question the source and just deal with people you trust, yes, you have to filter. Yes, there's a lot of bad advice and unsolicited advice. And so you have to filter, but you still have to be getting feedback from the outside world. So my advice would be, try to find that balance, and don't be a bull, don't be a sponge. Be somebody that can manage your own perfectionism. Don't let it manage you. And then, and if you need help with any of this, of course, once again, Demetrius Jelatis here. You can find me at www.mnpoolbootcamp.com. And I appreciate the questions and the support. So if you guys have questions for me, look me up and shoot me an email, info@mnpoolbootcamp.com. I'd love to hear your questions and take them on in the weeks ahead. And if you're looking to take your game to the next level, shoot me a line, and we'll get you on the calendar to put in some serious pool training. Thanks, guys.